What's up, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of the Paper Room Podcast. This is a podcast for young adults who are really trying to navigate the craziness of life as they are pursuing and following Jesus. The goal of this podcast is simply to talk about specific topics and themes that are surrounding our culture that hopefully will encourage us and challenge us in our faith journey. And so we are going to be your host every single episode. We might throw in somebody else every time, depending on the topic. But my name is Danny, and I want to welcome you. And I have my friends Nick and Isha with us. Man, you guys say what's up to everybody.
Hey.
Howdy. Yes.
So I'd love to just kind of expand on who you all are, because maybe we have people that know who you all are. Maybe they don't know who you are. Maybe they've seen you around the church here at BT. But Nick, man, tell us who you are, what you do at the church.
So I am Nick Maddox, and I am associate pastor here at BT Church. And I have the honor and privilege for the past several years to shepherd the young adult ministry of our church. And so I am not a young adult. I love young adults. I remember when I was a young adult.
You're passionate about young adults.
Passionate about young adults.
And one way I know that is because you and I just drove like a dozen of them to Atlanta.
Yes.
And for reference point,
16 hours.
We live in McAllen.
Yes.
And we drove to Atlanta.
16 hours. Yes.
Never again.
And that's love. That love did that.
That's love. Isha, what do you do at the church?
I serve in our student ministry and our creative ministry. So work on graphics for our church and also lead our girls ministry for students. So
that's awesome. I love seeing just the passion and that you have for them and seeing what you're doing in the student ministry. And so specifically for this podcast, Isha's our only young adult, right? And so I'm out of the young adult age. Nick, I imagine.
Nah, Doc, I'm a young adult.
You're a young adult.
No,
it's how you identify.
But I'm 77 years old.
So we're going to be pulling a lot from Isha because she's in the young adult world. We're graduated from that.
Yes.
So we have some experience, but you're in it. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to kind of get into this. And so just as we start off for today, I have a question I want to ask. Have y'all ever been lost before? Like, I want to hear a story of maybe one time you got lost, what happened in that moment. So have you ever been lost before? Share a story with us.
yeah, I've been lost. But at the time, I didn't know I was lost. So when I was 9, I qualified to go to a cross-country race in Kansas. And it was 17 degrees, so it was like ice everywhere, snow everywhere. There's thousands of people. Like, the line to get in was just insane.
To get into Kansas?
To get into like, where the course was at. Yeah.
I was like, dang, what was going on in Kansas?
To get into Kansas. So we just hopped off the van, got in the line, and took off. So when I came in from the race, instead of going straight to find my mom, where all the other parents were, I just decided, well, I'm going to go this other way. I went the opposite direction to try to find my friend who was also running the race. So I was just walking by myself in the snow with all these random strangers, trying to find, my friend. And my mom, on the other hand, was like panicking, like trying to find me. Maybe she slipped, like maybe something happened to her because it's like ice, it's freezing cold. So I just hear her calling my name, like way over there, Isha. So I turned around. I was like, what's going on? I was just looking for Brianna. Like,
you're so oblivious.
And she
to
was
being
so
lost.
like, get over here. I thought you got lost. She was freaking out, and it was so cold. But I didn't know I was lost. I just was kind of like, I'm gonna go walk around. I went the opposite direction I was supposed to go.
There's a sermon in there. I mean, people walking around life, they don't even know they're lost.
They don't know it. Yeah.
You ever been lost?
I try not to be.
Okay.
I don't like to get lost. I'm directionally challenged. I'm a black man, so I don't like to get lost. I like to know.
Just for reference for anybody listening to the audio version, not the video version. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. But when I first started driving, and here's what helped me. Deacons knew I was terrible with directions, and one of my old deacons told me, he said, "Listen, Nick, if you know how to get home, you're never lost." And I said, "Man, that will preach."
Amen.
And if I ever feel like I'm lost, I'm just going to turn around and go back home. And so that's why I never get lost, because if it take too long to find stuff, brother going to make a U-turn and go back home.
Yeah.
So wrong stop.
Wrong.
I've had a couple of lost moments, and it's funny because I like your story, Isha, because you were oblivious to the fact that you were lost. You're not even trying to get lost ever. For me, it's like I had that prideful element of being lost. It's like I knew I was lost, but I'm like, I can figure this out. Like, I don't have to ask anybody for help or anything. Like, one, I have an iPhone, so I can just figure out where I'm at. Or now it's almost impossible to get lost because you have directions on your phone. But one of the first times going to New York City, I'd never been there. subway signs still looked like Chinese to me. Didn't understand where we were. Summer and I were in Manhattan trying to get to Queens, and not understanding the subway system, I just kind of thought we were in the right area. But I do feel like I have a good sense of direction. And I knew where Queens was, and I felt like the subways were going the opposite direction. And I was like, I got to figure out how to get to the other side because we need to go that way type of thing. We need to go the other way. And so I was trying to figure it out. It was in January, so it was like 20 degrees outside, very, very cold. And we were just getting frustrated. And Summer
Everybody
was
gets lost in the cold.
Yeah, everybody gets lost in the cold. Like, why is that?
Can't focus.
And so we were frustrated, and Summer was like, just go ask for help. And I was like, I got this.
I'm not asking.
I did not have this. So finally, I was like, all right, I'll go ask for help. And so I walked up the subway stairs, found the first store that I can see. Is like, hey, I'm trying to get to Queens. And I kid you not, and you may have heard the story before, but this dude that was inside the store, like not even a worker, like he was just there, he grabbed me like around my neck. And I was like, what is this guy doing right now? Like I thought he was about to get robbed or something. And he points across like diagonal to the other side of the street. He said, you see that staircase over there? That's where you need to go. And I was like, okay, like bro, like let go of my neck. Like I can see. And he was, and he kept doing that, like pointing across the street, go there. And I was like, all right. And I remember processing that story. I'm like, man, like that dude didn't want me to get lost again. Because if you end up in that subway, go the opposite way,
you ain't making it.
You ain't never turning back, man.
Yeah, you ain't making it.
And so the reason I want to share these stories because there's moments where we get lost in life, and you think about where we are right now in this season of the new year 2022, middle of January. For so many people right now, it's about setting goals. It's about setting resolutions, kind of going after certain things that you want to go after. And then you think about the reality that once we set a goal, what we're doing at that moment is we're kind of referencing a starting point of where we are, and we're trying to get to where we want to be. And that's really the topic that we want to talk about today. Is start where you are. And so if you're a young adult, you're navigating through life, you're setting a goal, you want to go after a physical goal, a digital goal, a health goal, a spiritual goal, whatever the case may be. What we want to talk about today is how do we start where we are and almost get to where we want to be. And you think about an easy illustration is if you're at a mall, you're trying to find a store, you have like the map directory. What's something you always find is
that
where
star.
you are,
You
right?
are
You got to
here.
know
Yeah.
your starting point, your starting reference to kind of get to where you want to go. And that's the goal for today, is start where you are. And so thinking about the new year, right? Everybody does the new year, new me goals. This is always a great time to kind of start fresh, to start new in January in the season. For you guys, are y'all goal setters? Do y'all have goals for this year?
I am a goal setter. I usually set very general goals like throughout the year, but every new year I sit down, like I write it down on a journal or in my planner. And it's usually like
You buy
4
like a
or
new
5
planner every year?
things. I do buy a new
Well,
planner.
I guess you have to because it's like
Yeah.
for the year.
I even sometimes buy
Yeah, you
planners in the
can't
middle of the year.
reuse it.
That was a dumb
I like
question,
the design on the
yeah.
outside. But yeah, I like to set goals. This year was different. I noticed I didn't write down anything. And when people asked me, I was like, no, I don't have anything. So I asked myself why, like, that's weird. And I caught onto this pattern that I do every single year. And I write down the same, like 3 things. And I'll just be honest. Read more, journal more often, and eat healthier. Like those are the most consistent things I write down every single year. And I just realized, like, I feel like I never do those things. Like, I feel like I never progress. And so I just asked myself why. Like, why don't I do those things? And I feel like God was really trying to, like, reveal something to me in my goal setting. Because as I started talking to other people, like friends around me, about their New Year stuff, I noticed that I wasn't the only one that would put this extra heavy burden on goal setting, and just like an internal pressure of like, I want to perform, I want to do super well, I want to achieve these things, so I'm just gonna haunt myself basically all year long, and that anxiety every single New Year just actually traps you so that you don't feel like you have the freedom to actually achieve things. And so I realized, wow, that happened to me. Like I would crumble under my own pressure. Wow. And so at the end of the year, I would always be so disappointed in myself because I didn't do anything, but I was so like focused on my own performance, and all of that. So this year, instead of like writing it down, doing the same cycle again, I just told myself, like, I just want to be intentional, like little by little, in an area here and an area there, and I just don't want to even write it down because I'm going to end up haunting myself and like kind of, I guess the enemy uses that too, is like, look at all that you haven't accomplished yet. It's already the second year of January, whatever.
Right.
Second year of January.
So for anybody also listening that's like, I haven't said anything yet, and it's already too late because we're already in the middle of January.
Everybody already shared on Instagram, so it's too late.
Yeah. But that's kind of where I'm at. I'm in this mentality of like, I'm not in a hurry, and I'm not going to worry. And it's not that I'm going to be careless with my visions and my dreams and my goals and things I want to do, but I just want to cast all my cares on God, because I end up taking full control of like what I want to do instead of just like,
Isha, you got to put that on the shirt, what you just said. I'm not in a hurry and I'm not going to worry. That right there sounds like a great.
On a beanie.
A beanie.
Put it on a beanie.
Not in a hurry, not going to worry. That is good.
I love that. One of the phrases you said is this internal pressure. Like, we feel that is when we try to set a goal, we try to go after something. A lot of times we do it to show other people what we're trying to do, which is the whole social media world.
Yeah.
You think about end of December, early January, everybody was posting like, what are your goals? What are you reading? What's your one word? Like what? And because everybody wants to know what everybody else is doing. One, I think it's motivational. Like when you know what somebody else is doing, it helps you be motivated to set your own goals, but it's also accountable. Like you can be able to share those things with other people, and then now they can be accountable to you type of thing. Do you have any goals this year for anything?
Yeah. So, in many ways, like Isha, I start off every year with some general goals. In the past few years, my goals have kind of already been preset. I was going through seminary, and my wife was, going back to school, and so we kind of had those goals kind of preset for us to go after. Well, after graduation, and pandemic, like my goals went just up in the air, just to be honest. But looking at some of the old stuff I have, every year I start off saying, listen, I want to be healthy. So that's the best spiritual shape, relational shape, physical shape. And then I try to break those goals down. So for instance, like relational health. My daughter is turning 11. So I say, all right, 11 daddy-daughter dates this year. Just little stuff we can do. We didn't do it last year, and it was funny because I share the goals with her, and we talk about it, and she laughs, and she's like, Daddy, we got to get our dates in. We only did 8 last year, and we need
she's
to
counting,
get to.
Wow.
Yeah, she's counting. But then I'm like, Joker, you better have your goals too. You start calling me out on my goals, but goals like that. I try to break them down bite size, because I don't want to get so caught up in, this number that I'm missing out on the experience.
Yeah.
Like the goal is not necessarily the number. It's the health. But how do I want to achieve that health?
That's good.
And so I've noticed that when I do that with my goals, to, set them general, but break them down, to say, all right, I want to be spiritually healthy. So, 21-day fast. That's what it's going to be. I'm not worried about what December 31st going to look like.
Right.
But the first 21 days of January, well, I could do that.
Yeah. That's good.
By God's grace, I'll try to do that. But that's kind of how I've set my goals. So yeah, I do have goals to be the best spiritual shape, physical shape, emotional shape, relational shape of my life, and then break them down with the people in my life.
That's a good way of breaking it down. I'm a very, I love planning. I set, I have a Google Doc of all the books I want to read, all that stuff, and if books come up, I just add them to that list type of thing. And that just, the organization motivates me, I guess, so to speak. And then so I always have a reading goal. I always try to get 50, 60 books a year. And I've had conversations with people where they're like, man, how do you retain all the information? And one of the things that has really helped me is my goal in reading is not so much to remember everything I'm reading, but to kind of build a content library of just information.
Yeah.
And so when I read, I'm very intentional about highlighting, underlining, writing notes. I go to Instagram, I post my favorite quote of the book.
And you building your mind muscle.
Right, exactly.
That's what you're doing.
And then I'm able to go back and reference. So I've had people ask hey man, I want a good book on prayer. And so now, because I've organized it all in my Instagram highlights, I just go back, what's a book on prayer I read maybe 2 or 3 years ago? And then I'm like, boom, here, read this book. This is my favorite favorite quote. It was really good.
Even your Instagram is organized.
Dude,
That's crazy.
I try
I
to
get
be, yeah.
my book list in my Instagram
clean.
highlights.
100%. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that helps me a lot. And once I kind of made that realization, it's like, I'm not here to, when I read, I'm not here to remember every single thing. I'm just referencing it for content for future sermons, messages, whatever. And that's really kind of giving me a peace about like just flying through books, honestly.
Yeah.
And then some books I go back and reread them every January. I love starting with spiritual disciplines, kind of like you said, you do a 21-day fast. I love reading books on spiritual disciplines. It kind of gets me in that mindset.
Yeah.
With the celebration of disciplines, Richard Foster. Right now I'm reading Renovation of the Heart, Dallas Willard, and all those books just kind of set me really in a certain spiritual posture for the year. And one of the things I want to go and what I hear y'all talking about too is really creating more habits versus like tangible goals, which I think could be really healthy, because some people, what happens is you create a goal, you get it, and you're like, cool, I got it, that was great. Or you don't get it, and you kind of, like you said, like the devil uses that to just kind of say, look at what you didn't accomplish. Which one, I think the kind of opposite of that could be like celebrate what actually happened.
Sure.
If you set a goal to read 50, you read 25. You read 25 books. That's celebration.
Yeah.
And so, but I think, and I heard somebody say this too, but it's like, man, if you want to set a goal of being of running a marathon, why not set a goal of being a runner? Right. Set a habitual goal type of thing, versus, because then once you hit that marathon, you're going to be like, cool, that was great.
Yep.
What do I do now? Type of thing. A
great book that
go ahead.
Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Right. Very good.
Is a great book that I've had it for about 3 years, and it's a book I go back to. After my fast, I'll read it again. But he talks about that. Clear talks about forming the habits.
Right.
And not necessarily just
Reaching
focusing on that goal.
Yeah.
Because one of the things about starting where we are, I think is so important, is we are where we are because of our habits.
Yes.
Like that's, being honest about our hangups helps us see what our habits are. Like that's why I'm not a runner. That's why I'm not a reader, because of my habits. I have a habit of doing other things other than running or reading.
Right.
So,
Eating bad.
Yeah. Don't convict me, bro.
That's what we're here for, conviction.
Yeah.
And so a question I have to kind of follow up with this is, we're talking about starting where you are. Like if you're setting a goal, I want to read the whole Bible type of thing, or I want to run a marathon. Why do you think it's important to remember to start where you are? And what are the dangers of not starting where you are?
I mean, I'm reminded of like just this past season when I've been helping like other young adults or students, even when they come to me and they ask me like, I want to better my relationship with God, or I want to be more consistent in reading the Bible. I always ask them like, okay, what works for you in your quiet time? Like, are you a physical Bible person? Do you read from the Bible app? Do you read in the morning? Do you read at night? Just so I can get a sense of like what they know works for them. And if they already don't know, then that's kind of like, okay, then let's get started. Like let's test that out. But if they tell me well, I'm in the Bible app and I use it, but it's just inconsistent, but I really like that does help me.
Yeah.
Then they already kind of know like this is where I'm at. So then I'm able to come alongside them and say like, you know what, I'm not a Bible app person. Like I really love using my physical Bible and a journal. But I want to come alongside you and help you. So let's try to do that. And then I help myself in that habit. So just knowing like this is what works for me, this is what has not worked for me in the past, that's important. Because if you are continually trying to move forward in something, like if somebody is just trying to read the physical Bible and they're just getting stuck or they're getting distracted, when they're so used to something else, it's just going to be harder. It's going to be more disappointing, I guess, or more discouraging, not knowing what your body's used to, one, because reading the Bible is also physical, your physical environment, but just not knowing what your brain, what your learning capabilities are, I guess. And they do that in school, like
That's good.
They let you know like, hey, if you have trouble with this kind of test or whatever, because of the way it's formulated, we're going to have somebody that helps you. Yeah. Because that's like the physicality of who we are.
And that's okay. Like be okay with where you are. Like I think part of the whole social media world is we are tempted to be something we're not, and tempted to be where somebody else is already
Sure.
at, and that's a dangerous place to be, because then we use that as our starting point rather than where we are, and then we beat ourselves up because we're not where we thought we would be, or where somebody else is already at. And I think looking at the example of have a goal of running a marathon. Start where you are. For some of you, starting where you are is buying a pair of running shoes, right? And that's it. And it's like, okay, you did that one thing.
Yeah.
That's a huge step forward. Buy a good pair of running shoes. That's starting where you are. For some people, it's like, all right, well, I'm already used to running 5 miles a day, so I'm going to up that up to 10, whatever the case would be. I actually know somebody, very true story, friend of mine who literally got up one day and ran a marathon, no training.
Not like just like woke up and like run.
I mean, maybe not quite like
Yawning
that,
and everything.
but it was like he knew somebody running the marathon.
Okay.
It was the New York City Marathon, and he, okay, I'll say it this way. He ran the marathon to impress a girl, right? I'm not gonna say his name, but
Okay. Did he get the girl?
no.
Yeah.
But I mean, no training, no nothing.
No.
So it's possible.
And he didn't even get the girl.
He didn't get the girl.
That's what I
Wow.
like. That right there.
It's possible to do it, but I don't know if it's worth it.
Not if you ain't get the girl.
Not
No.
that
That's
part,
like
but
physical
right,
labor
yeah.
that you're
He said his
putting
toes
yourself
almost
through.
fell off, is what he like for real,
Broken heart,
or toenails or something.
gone toes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But it's like, so
No
start where
way.
you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some of that is just having that solid reference point. And there's so much danger when you don't understand where you are and you're not comfortable with where you are. And that's totally cool. Like if you have a goal to read 50 books, but you've never read 10 books in a year, I mean, set those small goals. Actually, I read this in a book one time. Maybe you've seen this movie, Lone Survivor. You seen that movie? Mm-hmm. Great
Yes.
movie. Mark
Yeah.
Wahlberg, classic. There's a powerful moment in Marcus Luttrell's life that is written in the book that they didn't show in the movie. But the whole point of Lone Survivor. I mean, I'm about to spoil it for you if you've never seen it. But 4 dudes go up on a mission, and they get attacked, Taliban, and one person makes it out.
Yeah.
And there's they're shot up, broken backs, jumping off cliffs, all that stuff. And there's a moment where he's just trying to find some water. In the movie, he just kind of stumbles upon a pond. But what actually happens in the book, when I read this, is that he couldn't even walk, broken leg, broken back. And what he did was he grabbed a stick, he reached out as far as he could, and he drew a line. He said, I'm going to crawl to get my feet past this line. And apparently he did that for several miles until he finally found a small body of water to get some water. And when I read that, I was like, man, like, well, one, put that in a movie. That's such a powerful scene. But two, it's like, you're starting where you are, and maybe you see where you want to be, but it's setting those small, tangible steps to get there along the way.
Well, I think another thing when we look at the scriptures in Genesis, in the beginning, the story of the fall. Well, after Adam and Eve sin, when God comes back,
That's a question, man.
God says, Adam, where are you?
Yeah.
So starting where you are is not just practical, it's theological.
Come on.
Because you're inviting God to say, all right, God, meet me here where I am. And here's the good news.
Brilliant.
God pursues us where we are.
Yeah.
God is not just in our future. Like sometimes we feel like God, and we say it here at BT, and it is true. God has big plans
Amen.
for you, and we believe that. But God is not just in our future.
Right.
God is eternal,
Yeah.
which means he's in our past, but he's also very real in our present right now where we are. And so I think one of the dangers of not starting where we are is this. We miss out on our experience of a present help.
Yeah.
One of the I love it. One of the Psalms says that God is a very present help in the time of need. And just that phrase, a very present help. Well, I won't acknowledge my present help if I'm always looking and, not wanting to be in my present where I am right now. If I'm always like trying to,
That's good.
be somebody else. Another danger of not starting where we are is this, we may reach a goal or accumulate success. But if you don't start where you are, knowing who you are and who your God is, you won't be who God wants you to be when you get there.
Yeah.
Come on.
And so that I think that's a danger.
Yeah.
Where I've counseled people. I've seen it. I've been through it in my own life where you reach a point and you don't even recognize who you are anymore because you were chasing this goal and not, like you said, not really, building up holy habits or building up habits and growing. As your friend was not a runner.
No.
He ran the marathon.
Which something I've never done before.
I ain't never done it.
Have you ever run a marathon?
Yes, I ran a marathon. Actually, it wasn't a full marathon. It was just 22 and a half. But I've been a runner since I was 5 years old, and I couldn't.
But see, she a runner.
22 and a half. You
Yeah.
needed
That's
like
almost there.
0.8
Don't
more
do that.
miles.
I didn't want to die, so I decided to
You had to
stop.
really-
Thank
Don't
God I
do
stopped.
that.
You didn't fit. I'm just kidding.
But see, your boy ran it, but he wasn't a runner. But Isha,
I don't think he's ran since then. That was probably like 10
well,
years
he
ago.
ain't got no
Wow.
toes.
That's awesome.
Broke heart, no toes.
Yeah, and so all I have to say, you're setting goals. You're trying to get 2022 right. You know what I mean? Because have that reference point and be okay with where you are. One of my buddies says this is be confident in who you are, be comfortable with who you're not.
I like that.
And
another thing I would say, well, I don't know if I would say be okay with where you are. I would say this, like, be honest.
Right, be honest where you are.
With where you are. Because another one, I think people don't start where they are is because of the pain of seeing where you're not.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
And so.
And you talked about that
We
God
avoid it.
meets us where we are, and you brought up a scripture passage earlier when we were kind of preparing for the episode. I don't know if you want to bring that up, but you see that with Jesus is that Jesus constantly meets people where they are.
Yep.
And then at that encounter, what does he say?
Yeah, it's in John. When he's approached with a woman who's caught in adultery, and when everybody's gone, because they realized, oh, I sinned too, and they left, and it's just him and her. He says, "Go, and from now on, do not sin anymore."
Yeah.
And I just thought of it, like I wasn't even reading it, but I just thought of it because it's such a one-liner from Jesus. He had so many one-liners. But he says, from now on, do not sin anymore. It's not like he said, okay, go preach.
Right.
Like I want you to end up becoming this amazing like woman of God who's going to preach, about this story or whatever. Like, yeah, that's where I want you to go. But he said, from now on, like, this is what I want you to do from right now.
Come on.
And I'm sure from that moment, she had to just turn around and go back to her life and practice being present in where she was, but actively working toward like where he had her, where that vision was that he had her. And there's a lot of ups and downs that come with that.
That's so good. Yeah. Because people, like, once they get saved, like a lot of times it's like you thrust them into ministry. Right. But what Jesus wanted for her was like, go live a life of following me. Right. Mm-hmm. Don't go live a life of preaching. I mean, that's going to happen. Like those moments of evangelism, preaching, mission, like that's going to be kind of a byproduct and the fruit of us following Jesus. Yeah. But his focus was more like, all right, this is now your new life of following me. That's very beautiful. I want to end with this. So, people may be setting goals right now. So, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe setting goals, going after a goal right now? Maybe somebody who set a goal and they already broke it. It's like, I'm not going to be on Instagram, and then they opened up Instagram January 2nd, or they started reading the Bible and they already gave up. What kind of advice would you all give to people who are in that stage right now, setting goals, trying to go after those right now?
I would say, don't be intimidated by the distance or the goal. Mm-hmm. Don't be intimidated, by the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Because I know, like, for me, that's a lot of times what happens. Like, I get intimidated by the gap, and then I'm just like, all right, But when you think about it, that gap, like you talked about when Mark Wahlberg, I can't remember the guy's name.
Marcus Luttrell.
Marcus Luttrell, when he made the line in the sand, like he needed to go miles for water, but that's a gap. Mm-hmm. Like that's a hike. But he, don't be intimidated by that gap, because what what we all have to do is worry about the next faithful step.
Yeah.
In your habit, the next faithful step. You say you weren't going to go on Instagram. All right, you went on it. All right. You might have went on it, but you ain't got to stay on it all day.
Mm-hmm.
You know? All right, you had a cheat meal. You didn't have to have a cheat day. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Okay, you missed your Bible reading for a day. It don't have to turn into a week.
Right. Amen.
Just take the next faithful step. And then really, man, get some bite-sized goals that you can string together. Stuff you can string together, stuff that you can actually accomplish. Like you talked about, to build. One of the things I love what you said, and you didn't say it in this podcast, but when we were talking, you were talking about your time in college, and you knew you had to read. Mm-hmm. And what did you do?
Right.
Share that, because that's powerful.
Yeah. For me, I mean, I was not a reader. I mean, and now I am. I feel like I am, I guess. And
you read 77 books. Yeah, you a reader. No, I'm just saying.
But what got me to that point was I was working at a summer camp, and it was long days, manual labor, and I didn't want to work. I didn't want to work on school after my job because I was just tired. And so what I trained myself to do was basically become a morning person. And what happened was I would set, a million alarms, wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and I would do my reading and schoolwork for Bible school.
How many alarms
during
did you
that
set?
time? Early on, it was a lot. Like I would set like 5 or 6 alarms easily.
I love that.
Yeah.
But
like
you
5
see
minutes
what I'm saying?
apart. Yeah.
How many times you hit snooze?
Yeah, every time.
But nope.
But
nope,
now.
Nope.
Now my body is just trained to wake up early, and now that's one of the most enjoyable parts of my day. Is like I'm gonna wake up at 6 in the morning, 6:30, make a cup of coffee, and just get into the Bible, get into reading, and that's my, to use Carrie Newhoff's language, that's my green zone. That's when I'm focused. That's when I'm able to intake information really well, but I trained myself to get to that point. I mean, some people, I guess, are naturally morning people, but for a lot of us, we're not.
Yeah, but there was a
we
gap.
Can get to that.
There was
point.
a gap, and you didn't allow it to intimidate you. You took the next faithful step, and that, I remember as a young adult.
And Jesus did it in the morning, so that's why I advocate mornings. So.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. Isha, what you think?
I would say, I think a lot of our goals center around the core of being productive and us wanting productivity. Like
yes.
we cheer ourselves on when we say like, oh, my day was so productive, which is cool. Like it's good to get things done. Obviously one of our practices is get stuff done. But I would say try to trade your definition for productivity with excellence, because we're always trying to get things done. Like we want to get a lot of stuff done. But that time that it takes to actually get something done with excellence, it's not going to happen like in one day. It's not going to happen in like a week. It might not even happen in the year that we set the goal for. Like it might happen like, okay, I see the fruits of what I'm doing like 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. Back in October, I ordered Nikes and I customized them. Every single piece of the shoe, I wanted it at my certain color. And it said, these aren't going to arrive until the first week of December. Like, I guess Merry Christmas to me, but like that's a long time to wait. But I knew like it's still being produced. Like that thing that I want, it's taking a long time, but I know it's not just like, oh, it's unproductive. No, like it's being processed. So finally when I got the shoes, I was like, man, this is so satisfying because everything I wanted was there.
And they came wrong?
It was excellent.
Oh, okay.
No, it was great. And now I wear them all the time. Yeah. But like we're going to have to wait and try to push against our instant gratification culture where like we just want the shoes now. But if I would have gotten them like the next week or like pushed the order, like, I don't know, maybe they would have messed up a color. Maybe they would have been like scratched or something, like if we want something done with excellence, if we want to be an excellent person at the end of the year, work on being excellent in your present, where you are, start where you are. But think about character over your products, over the things that you produce, over the things that you do for people.
That's good.
Like, yes, we got to serve, we got to love, but if you're not doing it with excellence or you're not doing it with
you teaching, man,
motivation, like the right intentions, just to get something done and to say like, okay, I checked off on my list for this year. Yeah. Yes, I got it.
And you can't curate
that's good
your character. Like you told it, like you can curate your Instagram and your lifestyle and put.
You can archive.
But you can't curate your character. Like, that is slow cooked.
Yeah.
That is,
That's good. Here's a challenge I want to have to close off with. One of the things you said earlier, like when we set goals, it's always like, I want to eat better. I want to do more of this. And I feel like goal setting is always doing more. My challenge to everybody listening, if you have goals, remove one of the goals from your list and do less of something. Or you have 5 goals, just cut it down to 3 or 4 and focus on those. And maybe you get those within a couple of months and then go after some other things. But rather than adding more to your goal list, try to subtract something and do something less. And maybe that might take a little bit of weight off of what you're trying to go after, just to really specifically target and focus where you're going after. And so all to say, thank you guys. That was a good episode 1 of the Paper Room Podcast, man. Come on. And our goal with this, as you guys are tuning in, is simply to get young adults to look more like Jesus. That's what we want, is to challenge and encourage the young adults who are tuning in just to grow in their faith in Jesus. And so we pray that this conversational piece of podcast is a great way of doing that. So Nick, Isha, thank you all so much for this. Man, we can't wait for the next episode.
Yeah.
Yes. Are we going to tell people why we called the Paper Room?
We'll keep people surprised.
Okay.
Y'all throw it
Tune
out.
in next time.
Tune in next time for
2.
why we call this the Paper Room. If you have an idea, message us at bt.youngadults on Instagram. What do you think? And so, anyway, thank you guys for joining us for episode 1.